Hello everyone. I have written and recorded this little introduction after the fact because I realized that I just jump into the content with no preface. Just like many of you watching this video, anime has been an important part of my life and has cheered me up immensely during some of my darkest days. I have been watching since sneakily staying up hours past my bedtime as a child led me to Toonami. This is my first attempt at a video essay format, so please forgive my lackluster editing and subpar speaking voice. I'm working on it. With all that out of the way, thank you so much for giving my video a chance, and I hope you enjoy. Hunter x Hunter is a manga created by Yoshihiro Togashi that began serialization in 1998. The series is considered by most to be a classic, and is regarded by many as being a foundational piece for the shounen genre in modern times. While I do not have the evidence to deny certain dismissals that Hunter x Hunter's impact was as grand as shows such as One Piece or Dragon Ball Z, I do believe that Togashi's work handles plot, character development, and world building in a unique way that holds true to human nature and a sort of realism, much more so than others in the genre. In this series, I will be going over one arc each video, summarizing the arc, saying what I enjoyed and disliked about the content, placing them in the tier list, and ultimately ranking them as well. Also, I will be examining the 2011 anime adaptation done by Madhouse, as it is how I initially consumed the story, as well as it just being regarded as extremely well done. Our journey together begins with a young woodland boy donning a nice ghillie hat. He is first seen perched high in a tree as he fishes for the boss dog of his island's fish population. And it is here, right at the start, that we must break the conventions we just established but once, as there is an incredibly important flashback that occurs in the manga, but does not occur in the 2011 anime adaptation until the impact of it had already bore fruit. After the boy shows his unidentified caretaker, Mito, that he caught the fish, which was a seemingly impossible task for the people of his island, he insists that she allow him to take the hunter exam, of which we know nothing about. Mito begrudgingly agrees, and this important flashback then plays out. It shows a much younger Gon in a thick forest. He gets into some trouble with a large creature and is saved by a mysterious man. The man berates Gon harshly and strikes him for being so reckless and weak. However, through their conversation, it is revealed that this stranger is actually a disciple of Gon's father, Jing, who left his son in the dust to become a hunter. The man claims that he is trying to hunt down Jing, a quest that will go on to mirror Gon's throughout the show. As the flashback comes to a close, the man looks to Gon and gives us one of my favorite quotes in the series: "All good hunters get along well with animals." Back in the present and the anime, Gon is completely unfazed by his father's lack of care for him, and he is fixated on learning what being a hunter meant to his father, and why he chose that path over raising him. Mito, being both resentful of Jing for becoming a hunter instead of taking care of his kid, and worried for Gon's dangerous road ahead, tearfully sees him off of their home on Whale Island. It is here that we see a photo of Jing, and the first evidence that the show's conventions for world building are much more grounded in reality than meets the eye. Jing is pictured with a motorcycle, and while this may not seem like much to many, it was the genesis of me feeling like this new world was far more like our own than other shonen worlds. Gon boards a boat that presumably stops at all of the ports in this neck of the world to ferry potential hunter exam applicants closer to the exam site. Gon seems to be the only applicant from his island, which shows his humble beginnings and only sweetens with time as we see the spiky 12-year-old combat the complex challenges of a largely unknown world to both him and us. On the boat, we learn the scale of the hunter exam, as it is stated that millions of applicants apply. Whether or not this is hyperbole is unknown, as only a bit over 400 applicants actually make it to the start of the exam. The most important thing to happen on the boat is the introduction of the characters of Karapika and Leorio, two teenage boys with nearly polar opposite personalities and motivations. Here we get a fantastic first example of Togashi's focus on realistic human nature and behavior instead of the cookie-cutter "I'm a good guy, I like being good," or "I'm a bad guy, I like doing bad things" motif that most shonen anime unfortunately fall under. Leorio is initially presented as a selfish, money-obsessed idiot that is taking the exam for solely personal benefit, However, we learn during the first phase that he actually wants to become a hunter to fund his medical studies that he began pursuing because a childhood friend died of an illness that his community was too poor to cure. Jeez. He vows to become a doctor that will cure people's conditions free of charge so they won't have to worry about losing someone themselves. Good guy Leorio. Karapika, on the other hand, seemingly has noble intentions for becoming a hunter, but he reveals quickly that his driving force in life is capturing the bandits that killed his entire clan because of a unique feature that the clan possessed, which makes their eyes glow a scarlet red when their emotions were heightened. He will go on to sacrifice much of his humanity and morals in order to reach this end. Like I said, this is a small example of Togashi's solid grasp on human nature and a prototype example of the good and the bad, bad and the good concept that the show will shine so much light on with our other two main characters. Karapika and Leorio get into a fight on the deck of the ship during a giant storm, and I'd just like to point out two things. One, I enjoy how simple each of their weapons are. Just a knife and some wooden swords. No magic or fancy weapons here, they're just gonna fight. Secondly, look at how sick this animation is. I feel like they use so much of their budget on this 4-second segment. They end up not fighting, and with the help of Gon full sending it, save some measly sailor instead. This sailor, Katzo, gives me Kobe vibes from One Piece. Nothing interesting happens on the boat besides everyone else but the big three failing the pre-exam test of not yakking on this nice man's vessel. The captain, who ferried Jing to the exam just as he is now doing for Gon, drops the boy and his new companions off at the port that leads to the next leg of their journey. He also gives Gon some advice on the real route to the exam. Leorio, who is almost tricked by the hordes of applicants boarding the buses, overhears some goons talking about how the main route is a hoax. Oh, also, I love how this guy says, "Lucky." The three companions voyage toward the tree, taking a quiz given by this weird grandma, and it is here that I want to point out a couple things. One, Gon has this moment where he can't decide who he would save between two friends, which seems like the most obvious foreshadowing of all time, but as far as I can tell, it never comes to pass in the series. The other thing is, Leorio was deadass about to beat up this grandma. Jeez. When the gang reaches the tall tree, they are once again put under a microscope as they are tricked temporarily into thinking these beasts have gravely wounded the people who are supposed to help them. However, Gon and Karapika quickly discern that this is all a setup and they earn the respect of the beast family. I really like how despite Leorio not knowing the truth of the situation, the beast family still passes him because he had medical experience and a good heart, always reassuring the fake injured man that him and his wife would be okay. Wholesome Leorio. The son of the beast family leads the three through Zaban City, a bustling haven for shady activity. They are in awe of the tall skyscraper where the exam is apparently taking place, only to find out that it is instead being held in a vine-covered ramen shop next door. A few meat-themed code words later and our boys are in a secret elevator descending 100 floors to the start of the exam. During the long descent, Leorio and Karapika argue over what it means to be a hunter. Karapika thinks it's about helping the world and catching crooks, while Leorio thinks it's all about the money. When asked who he agrees with, Gon makes a face that says, "Why not both?" The energy in the crowd of waiting applicants is incredibly tense, and it is here that we get a character dump of all the side characters in this arc. This dump is given through the eyes of one of my very favorite side characters in all of anime, Tompa. Alright, hold up. Let's talk about Tompa for a second. This hunk of a man makes the perilous journey to the hunter exam every year with a unique purpose firmly at the front of his mind. He derives pleasure from seeing rookies of the exam emotionally break, fail, and even die potentially. In his own words, he lives for the moment a rookie's will breaks during the exam. My headcanon is that Tompa works as a janitor for the majority of the year and uses all of his vacation days to go on his rookie-crushing journey. This is where most people, like 99% of people, would call Tompa a loser, but I see it differently. Tompa is a hustler, out in the world to get his, and that's all there is to it. Tompa offers the boys some juice, which turns out to be a strong laxative. This is another reason why I love Tompa. His attempts are never so evil that you grow a genuine personal resentment towards him. Instead, he just tries to make everyone lose control of their bowels so they can't take the test. Gon, showing his superior instincts and knowledge of wildlife, innocently tells Tompa that the juice must have gone bad. Tompa apologizes and goes on to talk about a heap of characters in the crowd, but the ones that we want to remember are Hanzo, a well-mannered and funny ninja who gets serious when Tompa offers him the poop juice, a man with a terrifying presence and an appearance resembling contemporary horror classic Hellraiser, and finally, one of the poster boys of the series, the always enigmatic Hisoka, who is first depicted as removing another applicant's arms for bumping into him without apologizing. Tompa is clearly terrified of Hisoka, claiming that he nearly passed the last exam, but was DQ'd because he nearly killed one of the examiners. We learn here that the Hunter Exam Committee is not a lawful good organization, and instead just looks to give strong people the ability to follow their dreams, regardless of how malicious they might be. The most important character introduced in this waiting period is of course Kilauea, an excited young boy with white hair who shockingly demands more of Tompa's poop juice. It turns out to all be a massive flex, as the boy knew the juice was laced, but cheekily exclaims to Tompa that poisons don't affect him. It is established from the jump that Kilauea is not a normal child, perhaps even more so than that was established for Gon. Suddenly the wall of the tunnel opens up to reveal a dapper man who curiously has no mouth. He introduces himself as Satots and explains that the first phase of the exam will begin now, and they are only to follow him to the second phase. I like the mundane nature of the first phase a lot. It gives time for a good amount of character interaction, including the expansion into Karapika and Leorio's backstory that I mentioned earlier, while also being a realistic way to thin the horde of applicants. The most important interaction that occurs during the running period is the first meeting of Gon and Kilauea, a moment so iconic that I can hardly put it into words. This candid encounter, which mirrors millions of real kids' first encounters with someone who they would grow close to, is quite literally the defined start of the greatest friendship in the medium of anime's history, and a friendship that would go on to define the series. At the end of the tunnel, the examiner turns to see how many will be able to continue onto the second half of Phase 1. As he turns, both Gon and Kilauea zoom past him, and immediately begin bickering over who crossed the line first. Satots is taken aback and super impressed by the athletic ability and nonchalant attitude of the kids. This moment shows the natural chemistry between Gon and Kilauea quite nicely. This guy makes it 99.99999% of the way there and fails just at the end. Pain. The next part has the applicants running through a swamp filled with creatures that deceive to hunt. Right away we get some deception when a shapeshifter-esque creature comes out of the woodwork and insists that Satots is a phony examiner. This is a great implicit character moment for Hanzo, as he is fooled by the creature's lie quite easily. I believe this to show that Hanzo, while being strictly trained and honed in the art of the ninja, has absolutely no street smarts whatsoever, likely because of the isolated circumstances of his upbringing. Togashi telling a lot with a little, love it. The entire facade is instantly shut down by Hisoka, who has no desire to play games. He kills the imposter and would have killed Satots too if the examiner was not adept at defense. The swamp journey shows a majority of the applicants die in a variety of brutal ways. The most important moment is Gon's first direct encounter with Hisoka, when he narrowly stops Hisoka from killing Leorio. Hisoka immediately takes a liking to Gon, and another iconic and oftentimes disturbing relationship is formed. There is this awesome moment where for a brief second I thought Hisoka was an examiner when he pulls out a walkie-talkie and chats with someone who had already reached the end of the swamp. The Hisoka as an examiner theory is immediately dashed, as it is revealed that Hisoka and the guy cosplaying Hellraiser are in cahoots. I want to pause for a moment to point out the significance of this shot. Keep it in the back of your mind. The massive gate opens up to reveal the second phase examiners, named Menchi and Buhara. Menchi is an adventurous looking woman, and Buhara is a massive rotund man. He kinda looks like he has a third eye situation going on. To the shock of the applicants, the second phase is revealed to be cooking, and they are instructed to go catch a pig and bring it back. Turns out the only pigs in the area are vicious carnivores. Gon finds the trick to hunting them, and it allows everyone to bring back a huge pig to cook. From a distance, Satots expresses hesitance in Menchi's selection as an examiner, saying that it is likely that fewer than 10 applicants will make it to the third phase. I love the part where Karapika is so confident in his dish because he prepared it all fancy, but the meat was still cooked terribly, and Menchi says it was no better than Leorio's. Leorio proceeds to chuckle as Karapika looks defeated. Cute moment. Menchi and Buhara are gourmet hunters, which shows that being a hunter is extremely open-ended and is all about what the hunter wants to devote themselves to. Menchi ends up failing every single applicant and cutely exclaims that the exam is over. Satots, knowing this would happen, calls their boss, who is high in the sky just above the exam proceedings in a giant airship. And here we get introduced to one of my very favorite characters, the powerful old man of the series, Netero. When hearing the news of Menchi's decision to fail everyone, the boss decides to head down there and see what's up. He chooses to do so in the most logical and safe way, of course, by jumping off the airship and landing on his feet below. The scene barely hints at the nigh unconquerable force that is Netero, and the 2011 anime adaptation does it beautifully. I mean, just watch these few seconds and see. That sound design. Netero briefly examines Menchi's assets, holding true to the powerful pervy old man stereotype in anime, of which he was partially responsible for popularizing. Netero decides that Menchi should continue as examiner, but she should pick a new test that she must also participate in. Menchi knows what she wants, so she asks Netero to take the applicants to the top of a mountain with a massive ravine. Here, they dive into the ravine to get some eggs before being blown back up by the strong currents of the chasm. We get another iconic shot of the Big Four jumping off the cliff before Menchi even had a chance to explain the directions fully. Afterwards, all the remaining applicants board Netero's airship in order to travel to the third phase. Netero introduces himself as the chairman of the hunter exam. True to all of his character development later, he exclaims that he loves the feeling of tension amongst the applicants. In typical Kilauea fashion, he is yawning instead of feeling the pressure of this moment. Beans, the cute green boy who we've seen before, informs the applicants that they are free to do whatever they want until the airship arrives at the third phase. Apparently the 1999 version of Beans is skin-colored, and I just don't like it at all, not one bit. This segment on the airship is the best part of the arc for me, as it does so much for the characters of Gon, Kilauea, and Netero. Tompa tries to make Karapika and Leorio paranoid, which fails. Elsewhere, Gon and Kilauea chat while looking out a window of the airship. Here, we get a massive example of what I was talking about earlier, with the world of Hunter x Hunter being a lot like our own. Beneath the airship is a massive city, millions of lights illuminating the ground below. Gon is in awe of what he is seeing, which once again shows his humble origin. I feel like Hanzo was probably sleeping during the journey, but he likely would have had a similar reaction to seeing the massive metropolis under them. Back to Gon and Kilauea's conversation, and the next 20 minutes of the show is just one iconic moment after the next. Kilauea tells Gon that he is the prodigy child from a family of assassins, but he ran away from home. Gon's neutral perceptions are on display here, when instead of being taken aback by Kilauea's claim, he instead asks if both of Kilauea's parents are assassins or just one. Kilauea is already Gon's friend, so Gon does not pass judgment about his family being assassins. Kilauea's escape from his family was not necessarily because he hated the act of killing itself, but because he did not want his whole life mapped out for him. Another great example of realistic human nature and desires by Togashi that I'm sure many people whose families were known for a business have felt. Kilauea reveals that he stabbed his brother in the side and slashed his mom in the face, indicating that he is not an only child. Netero, who is presumably just strolling around his airship, walks up on the two young boys chatting. Netero shows his devious nature by sending some sort of aura to the other side of the corridor that stuns the young boys. He then casually walks up from the other side. Gon and Kilauea's reactions show their personalities quite nicely. Gon innocently asks Netero if he saw someone coming from the other side, while Kilauea instantly recognizes something is going on and is immediately hostile towards Netero. Netero offers the boys to face him in a game, and if they are able to defeat Netero, they can skip the remaining 3 phases of the exam and become hunters. The wager that the old man makes masterfully captures Netero's mindset and confidence in his ability, as he is willing to undermine the legitimacy of the entire exam that he is the leader of to essentially just get a workout and see how strong these two kids are. The game turns out to be a version of Keep Away, where Netero has a volleyball and the two boys are tasked with taking the ball from him. This unbelievably iconic scene does a few things. It shows Kilauea's first use of the rhythm echo technique, which Netero instantly recognizes and describes as a cadence of steps that makes anyone watching see many versions of the user. This technique aligns with Kilauea's assassin background nicely. After having no luck, Kilauea tags Gon in a way that really makes me believe that they are already best friends. As soon as Netero's focus shifts from Kilauea to Gon, he notes that Gon appears to be an honest young man, contrasting the shady nature of his pal. Gon then goes on to immediately impress Netero by causing him to drop his guard. Netero's side affirmation here is gold. At the behest of Netero, the boys team up and try to tag team the game, but learn soon enough the countless levels between them and the old man. Even with some crafty on-the-fly trickery by the boys, Netero gets serious only for a moment and demonstrates the only outcome of this game. Frustrated that he had been taken for a fool, Kilauea quits and begins to leave. He tries to convince Gon to do the same, but Gon shows his unique and powerful mindset when he decides to stay and train with Netero until the ship arrives at the next phase. During all of this, Netero sees the true potential beneath the surface of Gon. As Gon and Netero train, Kilauea makes his way back to where everyone is sleeping, when two fodder characters bump into him and try to confront Kilauea. Kilauea, who is clearly not in the mood for this, quickly murders both fodder characters. The third phase begins at the top of this giant prison tower. The ground has trapdoors, and out of plot convenience, the Big Four find themselves in a trial called Majority Rule, where 5 people vote on each decision, and whichever choice gets 3 or more votes is the one that is selected. I love how all 4 of them anticipate not seeing each other again until the end of the phase, or maybe ever if they don't complete it or die, and they just meet back up instantly. Karapika saying, "Well, that was certainly a brief farewell," was perfect. I remember on my first watch of the series, I was entirely expecting Hisoka to be the 5th member. Hunter exam Hisoka truly had a terrifying presence, like he was really going to kill 1 or more of the Big Four if he got the chance. Little did I know at the time, but Togashi has other plans for the mad clown during this phase. Instead, the 5th member during this labyrinth would end up being the baller himself, Tompa. Gon is innocently happy to see him, while the rest of the gang groans in disappointment. The first few decisions are super simple, with Tompa of course attempting to sabotage the team at every opportunity. The second choice has an interesting interaction where Leorio claims a study he saw said that left is a better choice in a maze. Karapika and Kilauea affirm this to be true, but when Leorio asks them which they chose, they say right. Tompa then cheekily explains that the examiners would then try to trick them by making the easier way to the right instead. Leorio, feeling his own ignorance, exclaims that Gon and him must just be simple-minded, to which Gon hilariously responds, "Us?" Leorio forgot that Tompa is trying to screw them over. That's what happened here. The bulk of this phase takes place in an elevated room where the 5 compete against 5 prisoners. If the gang scores 3 points, they move on. If the prisoners score 3, they get 75 years off their sentence. With this being a maximum security prison, these criminals must be some bad mothers. The first match has Tompa valiantly step up to face this military type. For a moment, we think that Tompa, of all people, is going to be the first example of this universe's power system in play, but instead, he just surrenders. Furious, Leorio almost beats up Tompa, and this is when Tompa reveals his true motivations to the Big Four. Chad Tompa, 0-1. Kilauea then weighs in with his experience, claiming that the merc would have crushed Tompa's throat so he couldn't have surrendered, and then ran the clock down for an easy prisoner W. The next match has Gon face off against a serial bomber, a crime that feels quite realistic compared to the criminals in other anime. The bomber guy tries some trickery with this candle game, but Gon does not care one bit and blows that candle out real quick. 1-1. The third match is the best one so far, and it puts Karapika up against this big blue baby. This guy looks tough, but his intro card shows that he isn't locked up here for anything violent. He tries his best to intimidate the femboy, but Karapika has seen far worse than this weirdo, obviously, so he calmly prepares to fight. That is, until the blue goober tries to act like he is a member of the Phantom Troop, and even makes up that he is one of the 4 kings, when that title doesn't actually exist in reality. Karapika loses all control, and in this shot that the 2011 anime adaptation absolutely nailed, Frame teleports to get close and bodies the imposter. I mean, look at this. He smashes the Phantom Phony mercilessly. 2-1 our boys. It is here that we get to see what Hisoka has been up to in the labyrinth. Turns out the examiners this year were not too happy about Hisoka almost killing one of them last year. So they brought back the guy and had him face Hisoka in a 1-versus-1 death match. This guy has 4 blades, which is kinda cool, but Hisoka doesn't think it's very cool, so he catches them and chops this guy's noggin off with ease. Hisoka then becomes the first person to pass the phase. I wonder what he's thinking about when he's sitting here for 60 hours or whatever. The 4th match sees Leorio face off against a gambler girl. The prisoners try trickery 2.0 when they tell Bluey to lay there and act like he's unconscious so the 4th round can't begin. But Leorio pulls up big time and nearly kills this guy. Leorio and Pinky do a series of wagers, the most notable being when Leorio intentionally loses just so he can cop a feel. God Leorio. The gamble girl ends up winning a game of rock, paper, scissors, a game that we will be seeing much more of in future episodes. And the team is forced to spend 50 of their 72 hours in a room, negating any progress they could make in that time. No regrets. The final match is easily the highlight of this entire segment, and the best part of the arc for many people. Kilauea is the last one to go, and his opponent scares the other prisoners. The warden confidently exclaims that the hunter exam is not a place for mercy, so if the kid has to die, he has to die. The prisoner turns out to be the biggest mass murderer in Zaban City's history, who killed hundreds of people with his bare hands. When his handcuffs are removed, he quickly dispatches of Bluey for trying to step up, and then crushes the wall as he walks up. Ooh, so intimidating. His perceived intimidation continues when he tells Kilauea that his only objective is to hear the little boy scream, to which Kilauea probably found some twisted enjoyment in hearing, as in the next moment, the big talker's heart has been ripped from his body and neatly folded into a nice sack crafted from the man's shirt. This whole scene is done so well. The intimidation factor of the mass murderer is built from the prison warden to Leorio and then to the other prisoners, and all of it is dashed in an instant when everyone in the room realizes that Kilauea is something different than they all thought. I also love how Kilauea himself states the truth of that encounter, which is that mass murderers are still only amateurs and that he used to be a professional. Badass. Also, Gon's reaction here is priceless. He is not appalled or disturbed in any way, just interested in his new best friend, once again showing Gon's unconventional perceptions of good and evil. Kilauea then asks the merc, who was so tough thinking about crushing Tompa's throat, if he wants to dance with Kilauea instead, to which he of course declines. Kilauea just sunned everyone in the room besides maybe Gon and Karapika. 3-2 for our boys. Let's go! But now they have to wait in this, albeit comfy, looking room. I love how Tompa's shoes are away from everyone else's. There is a short montage of the rest of the 5's journey after the 50-hour room before they can arrive at one final choice, which either puts them on the labyrinth that will take 30 hours, or they can send only 3 through and take an easy 10-minute cruise to the finish. All 5 of them are still there, and tensions rise a little when it seems like Leorio and Tompa will be the ones left behind. Weapons line the walls, seemingly implying that a less friendly group would fight until there was only 3 left. Instead, we are left in suspense for a bit before seeing our prediction being potentially realized, as Gon, Kilauea, and Karapika emerge at the finish line. But only moments after, both Leorio and Tompa arrive as well. Turns out that Gon and co. use the weapons to bust through the wall and then take the easy path. What? I mean, it's not very clever, in my opinion, but sure, why not? Maybe that's the point. The 4th phase is then announced outside the base of the prison. This phase is by far the most intense, as the remaining applicants will spend an entire week on a nearby island where their only objective is to take the tags of their fellow members. Each applicant is anonymously assigned a target. Your badge and your target's badge are worth 3 points each, and every other badge is worth 1 point. To pass to the final phase, one must have 6 points total at the end of the week. So either your badge and your targets, yours and 3 others, your targets and 3 others, or just 6 others. Gon, of course, gets Hisoka as his target, and I love this moment where Kilauea asks if Gon is scared or excited, and he says both. Personally, I would hope for, this guy as my target. Definitely not Hisoka or Kilauea. It is here that we get introduced to the first female guide bimbo of the series, and while it isn't important, I still like to make a note of these goofy girls and rank them. Applicants enter the island at a 1-minute interval based on the order for completing the 3rd phase, which means Hisoka is up first, followed by Hellraiser. Later on, Gon observes Pokal, this guy, hunt this dude and get his tag. Gon then understands that he is going to have to conceal his presence to take Hisoka's tag. He trains for a long-ass time trying to catch a bird mid-air, but realizes that it's pretty much impossible. But then, he observes that if he waits until the moment the bird goes for a fish, this is the only moment that the bird's movements are completely predictable. I like this notion a lot and how Gon goes on to use it against Hisoka in a bit. Kilauea is trailed by this guy who has no sauce, and Kilauea completely recognizes his presence. You can't help but feel bad for the sauceless boy as he truly believes he will be able to take Kilauea's badge, but his inner monologue shows that he is just scared of getting beat up by his big brothers. The brothers show up, and Kilauea lets out the most iconic baka, in my opinion. The leader, this red shirt guy, realizes that Kilauea is not an ordinary child, and the three brothers take their battle stance. Kilauea, clearly not feeling full from that flex in the last phase, flexes on these guys so unbelievably hard and gets his tag in the process. Hanzo watches keenly from the bushes, as the other brother is his target. Kilauea throws the remaining badges in opposite directions, but when Hanzo gets to his mark, he realizes that Kilauea switched the tags before he threw them, fooling Hanzo as well. This moment confused me a little bit, because my perceptions, and Kilauea's own admittance later on, was that Hanzo was stronger than Kilauea at this moment, but maybe Kilauea's assassin training allowed him to detect Hanzo. This brings up another interesting question that I would love to hear from you in the comments on. Can Hanzo tap into the series' power system already? The other two powerhouses of this arc clearly can, as we will learn, and he is close to their level potentially, so I wonder. Gon locates Hisoka by using these butterflies that are drawn to blood, and Hisoka's shoulder injury from the previous phase makes him pretty easy to find using this method. Gon, knowing the difficult task ahead of him, does his best to completely remove his presence. Unconscious Zetsu? After a while, Hisoka terrifyingly exclaims that he knows someone is there, and begins to walk right towards Gon. Terrifying presence. However, it turns out to just be this nice barber who is wounded from the previous encounter. He demands that Hisoka fight him, but Hisoka just knows the man is wounded and would prefer just to watch him bleed out. Sadistic. Just as the man is primarily enraged and charges at Hisoka, a bunch of needles come out of the tree line and end this man's shit for good. Out from the trees comes Hellraiser, and it is here that we get easily the best scene of this phase, especially in retrospect. Hisoka and Hellraiser chat for a while, talking about each badge they've taken. I love this part where Hellraiser says a sniper pissed him off, so he killed him. Cold-blooded. Hellraiser then does something that made my head spin the first time I saw it. He begins to remove his needles, and as Hisoka watches on with amusement, transforms from Hellraiser to this very attractive statue-looking boy. What the? And then he decides to take a nap in the ground for the rest of the phase. What? Just an amazing moment when you know who this guy really is, and a very confusing first look at his character. Gon, clearly down bad that Hisoka didn't attack the barber, continues to observe Hisoka as he moves about the island. Hisoka then runs into Leorio and Karapika, who have decided to team up. Gon resolves to abandon the plan and help his friends if Hisoka chooses to attack them. However, Karapika uses his femboy charm and convinces Hisoka to just take the one rando tag they have. But this stimulates Hisoka so much that he is hell-bent on killing the next person he sees. The clown unleashes a strong wave of bloodlust that sends the animals fleeing and Gon cowering. When Hisoka finally finds his next person, this guy, who? He charges with reckless abandon and makes this face. The first of a couple iconic Hisoka faces. Gon takes this perfect opportunity and fishing poles Hisoka's tag at the very moment that Hisoka kills the nose. I love Hisoka's face after this all goes down. He just looks at Gon like, huh? I like this because Hisoka clearly thought he understood every facet of the situation he was in until Gon made his move. As Gon retreats with his mission accomplished, however, he is struck with a poison dart administered by this guy, who had apparently been watching him the entire time he was practicing on the birds. Despite admiring Gon's skill, he leaves him in the dirt, tagless. That is until Hisoka easily kills the guy and returns the tags, clearly having enjoyed Gon's plan to take his tag. Gon, stubborn as ever, struggles to stand up and exclaims that he doesn't want to owe Hisoka anything, but Hisoka doesn't like Gon that much, so he lays him out with a hard uppercut. I also really like the symbolism here with the butterfly in the web. I got roasted by my friends during a watch together for saying I liked this part so much, even when it was obvious. But the one thing they do not understand about symbolism is that it doesn't need to be hidden beneath layers of plot development and subterfuge. The meaning of this is not supposed to be hidden, and it highlights the relationship that Gon and Hisoka will have from this point on. The rest of the phase sees Tompa getting his comeuppance, which is a perfect end to Tompa's arc, in my opinion, because he never did anything too evil, and his comeuppance wasn't anything too deadly or mean either. He just gets beat up and tied to a tree. A fitting end to the biggest hustler in Hunter x Hunter, alongside this guy, who we will get to. The last part of the phase sees Gon reunite with Karapika and Leorio, and they work to get Leorio's target from this cave. This part is the weakest part of the arc for me. They are trapped in this cave with this dead snake dude and the bee girl. The bee girl killed the snake dude, but snake guy set his snakes to guard the cave entrance just before he died? I don't even know. I think this part is pretty weak narratively. I do like how during Tompa's character expo at the beginning, he claims that Snake Boy holds a grudge, which matches up with this scenario. Gon once again shows his potential when he puts everyone to sleep, including the snakes, and carries everyone out of the cave. Fourth phase over. In between the fourth and final phase, Bossman Netero conducts interviews with the remaining 9 applicants, starting with Hisoka. Hearing Hisoka's name on the intercom causes Gon to falter a bit, and Karapika notices. The interview questions go something like, why do you want to be a hunter? Which applicants are you keeping your eye on? And which applicant would you least want to fight? I'm going to go over the notable responses to these questions now. Hisoka has his eye and doesn't want to fight Kilauea or Gon, because they would be wasted so early in their lives. I also have to point out the moment where Hisoka says the one he most wants to fight is Netero himself, to which Netero cheekily continues the conversation as if the clown had said nothing at all. Knowing about this show's power system only makes this interaction sweeter, as Hisoka seemingly invokes it here, but Netero feels so absolutely unthreatened that he doesn't even change his body language. Pokel gives Karapika some love by claiming that he appears to be the most balanced applicant. Kilauea keeps his eye on Gon, because they're best friends of course, and he also cheekily says that he wouldn't want to fight Pokel because he couldn't see it being much of a fight. The old Dojo Master claims that he doesn't want to fight Gon or Kilauea because they are only children, if only he knew. Hellraiser, aka Cute Mole, answers with a cold demeanor and one-word answers. Gon, of course, doesn't want to fight any of his friends he has made along the way. Hanzo is wisely keeping his eye on Hisoka and exclaims that he would rather get through the test without having to face him. Smart man. Karapika adds a new layer to the question by claiming that he is watching Gon for positive reasons, but Hisoka for negative ones. He then exclaims that he will fight anyone if he has to. Otherwise, he'd prefer to fight no one at all. I just love his answer here because it's really true to his character. Wholesome Leorio tears the roof off with his answer when he says that he is watching Gon for all the good he's done for him, and also says it's the same reason he wouldn't want to fight Gon. Even though that would probably be Gon's easiest path to victory. Just kidding, Gon's too sweet. He would probably let Leorio win that one. Netero is hanging with the examiners and unveils the bracket for the final phase, to which the other examiners reply in shock and terror. The final phase takes place in this fancy complex that I really enjoy the architecture of. The objective is simple compared to the previous 4, being an all-out 1v1 battle tournament with a twist. The twist comes in the form of, instead of there only being one winner, there's actually only one loser instead. Each of the 9 need only one win to become pro hunters and change their lives forever. Netero explains that he developed the bracket based on his own judgment of each applicant, having the most promising ones get the most tries. Kilauea, being skeptical that his score is a bit low compared to Gon's, asks how the scores are calculated, to which Netero hilariously makes this face. Netero explains the criteria vaguely, and in this moment, during my first watch, I thought the show was going to go down a similar path to Naruto, with the best friend character becoming a villain. If only I knew. Now that the bracket has been unveiled, let's see how it goes. I love the anticipation of Hanzo vs. Gon. On my first watch, I really thought Gon had a chance, because of him essentially taking W after W the whole show. But one must realize that none of those dubs were direct combat encounters. Togashi keeps it real with the power scaling, and this fight is an absolute brutal beatdown by Hanzo. I love the part right at the start where Hanzo gets right up next to a full-speed Gon before dropping him. This fight would have been over in seconds if Gon didn't have otherworldly resolve. The only way to win is to make the other opponent surrender, and you can't kill them. This rule shows Netero's twisted side, as Menchi explains that anyone who made it this far likely wouldn't just tap out. Hanzo ups the injuries over and over until he eventually breaks Gon's arm. I love this part where Hanzo is gloating and Gon kicks him before collapsing again. Hanzo finally threatens to cut Gon's legs off, and while horrific, Gon instead exclaims that he wants to see his dad, and that's why he's becoming a hunter. Hanzo finally acquiesces and forfeits the match, to which Gon stupidly claims that's not good enough and he needs to win in a legitimate way. This shows Gon's immaturity, and also completely changes the air in the room, as pretty much everyone, even Hisoka, starts to laugh at the ridiculous nature of this entire situation. Kilauea is awfully confused as to what just happened, and perhaps thinks to himself that this is the potential that Netero saw. Hanzo KOs Gon and then forfeits once more. He then tells Netero when Gon wakes up to force him to become a hunter. Our boy has done it! Kinda, he's still looking for his dad and all that. After Gon is KO'd, Kilauea asks Hanzo what changed. Hanzo gives an educated reply about how when he tortures someone, he expects them to hate him for the rest of his life. But he saw none of that hatred in Gon, even though it had just happened. I like Hanzo, and Gon is a mad lad. The scene cuts to Gon waking up in bed, and Satots is sitting bedside. The gent presents Gon with his shiny new license, and when Gon shows the slightest hesitation, Satots makes him take it. Gon inquires about what happened after he went out, to which Satots shockingly claims that the exam had already concluded. The rest of the phase is explained through Satots' memory. The match following Gon's takes us to the other side of the bracket for Hisaka versus Karapika. On first watch, I was seriously scared for Karapika here, but it turns out that Hisaka had unique intentions for the femboy, and the mad clown whispers something in his ear before forfeiting the round. This is absolutely fantastic setup for some of the best parts of the show down the line. The next match sees Hanzo do exactly the same thing to Pokel, but Pokel instantly surrenders. Easy for Hanzo. Hisoka and the Dojo Master fight. Hisoka beats him up bad, but the old boy won't surrender, so Hisoka whispers something in his ear, and the Dojo Master surrenders. It's a popular theory, and maybe in the 99 anime, although citation needed, that Hisoka whispered something along the lines of, "Surrender or I'll kill the kids," referring to the Dojo Master's mercy towards Gon and Kilauea expressed during the interview. Hunter x Hunter is so great because character interactions like this do not need to be explicitly stated. It's some high-level writing. Afterward, and mirroring his answer in the interview, Kilauea surrenders to Pokel because he doesn't want a super easy match. And now we get to one of the biggest plot points of this entire arc. Kilauea vs. Hellraiser is about to start when Hellraiser says calmly, "Hello, Kill," to which Kilauea's demeanor begins to change. The tall figure once again begins to take the pins out of his head and transforms. Kilauea reacts with disbelief when he sees his big brother before him. One complaint, though, is how did Kilauea not know about this ability from his brother? I assume he created a new disguise to watch Kilauea, but wouldn't Kilauea recognize the needles? They're kind of his staple. I don't know. It is here that we learn from Satots that Kilauea's big brother is named Illumi. Dope name. They have a dialogue about Kilauea's escape, and Big Bro claims that their mom was crying because of what Kilauea did. Leorio, feeling right at home with this very normal conversation, says, "Of course she would be," to which Big Bro finishes his sentence, that their mom was crying tears of joy. This causes Leorio to do a handstand, or face stand. Nice. Illumi goes on to mentally manipulate Kilauea by saying that his younger brother isn't cut out to be a hunter because he only lives for one thing in his life, being an assassin. To which Kilauea replies that's not true because he does want something else. When Illumi inquires, we get an exceedingly sad and wholesome moment as Kilauea exclaims that he wants to be friends with Gon over anything else the world has to offer. Best friends. Continuing the emotional torment, Illumi then says that Kilauea also cannot have friends for the same reason, and that he will eventually want to kill Gon, as well as claiming that it is because Gon shines too brightly and Kilauea doesn't know what to think, which is a super romantic line. Illumi decides that the healthiest decision for his little brother would be just to go kill Gon right now. He uses his terrifying needle power to interrogate and seemingly kill the employee before he is stopped at the door of the room by Karapika, Leorio, and Hanzo. Let's go, wholesome Hanzo. Big Bro then realizes that killing Gon now would deny him of his hunter's license, which he needs for an assassin job. But then, he makes another revelation that he could just wait until after the test and then kill Gon. He then asks Netero if he could kill everyone in the room right now after the test and it would be fine, to which a relaxed Netero affirms this to be true. I love this moment for Netero as well, because if you've seen the entire show, you know it's not an exaggeration to say that Netero could comfortably fight everyone in this room at once and come out on top. But we'll get to that much later. Illumi finally exclaims that if the boy wants to save Gon, he'll have to defeat his older brother. This is the first example of a plot point that develops much later on about Illumi's control over Kilauea, and it is done excellently, as Kilauea surrenders and forfeits the round. Illumi then reassures his brother that he won't kill his friend, and that it was only a test. The final match of the tourney pits Leorio versus Dojo Master. And you may be asking, what about all the other matches? Well, an emotionally destroyed, mind-controlled Kilauea nannies behind the Dojo Master and returns the nice old man's kindness with an arm through the chest. Woo, baby! Because of the no-kill rule, Kilauea is disqualified, and the remaining 7 applicants are verified as hunters. Woo! Let's go, Leorio! Doctor time! Gon, furious that Kilauea's brother potentially manipulated him to kill, as well as tarnishing his brother's desire to be friends with Gon, angrily makes his way to the exam debriefing. Satotes follows him, requesting that Gon get back in bed because he is still injured. The way Satotes says Gon-kun here is very memorable to me for some reason. Gon busts through the door of a sparsely populated lecture hall, with the 6 other new hunters in attendance and Netero on the stage. The terrifying elephant in the room is of course Illumi, sitting front row. There are 2 excellent retorts in this room. The first coming from Gon after he angrily approaches Illumi, insisting that he does not deserve to be Kilauea's brother, to which Illumi pointedly responds that he didn't know he had to deserve it. Gon then uses his boy strength to apparently break Illumi's arm and toss him into the air like this. Illumi, despite threatening to kill Gon only hours before, has absolutely no interest in the boy in reality. The room discusses the odd situation of Kilauea killing Botaro for seemingly no reason, and the accusations against Illumi are raised. Pokel then tries to interrogate Karapika about his suspicious victory over Hisoka, but we get another witty response when Karapika fires back, saying that a victory by forfeit is just as illegitimate as how he won. Gon has a good monologue about how he doesn't care about the result of the exam whatsoever, only that Kilauea's brother is potentially manipulating him to kill. Gon claims that once he finds Kilauea again, they're going to escape from the young assassin's family for good, which does not make overprotective Illumi too happy. He extends his palm towards Gon, presumably about to use some sort of manipulation-style attack, but Netero shuts it all down, exclaiming that Kilauea is not a hunter and everyone in the room is. Secretary Beans explains all of the perks of having a license, which basically makes you a Roblox VIP, but in real life. He also goes on to make an interesting claim that 1 in 5 hunters lose their license within the first year of getting it, and their first task will be to make sure it stays safe. I know that Kilauea mentions avoiding shady people coming to Whale Island to take Gons, but I really would have liked to see more involving the value of the license. This is one of many examples in this show of plotlines going nowhere. Gon then confronts Illumi for a second time after the meeting. I love how he calls him Gitaraker here, not Illumi. Illumi is quite calm towards Gon and even answers his questions about where Kilauea went. Apparently, he went home to his family's not-so-secret super mountain fortress at the top of Kukuru Mountain. God, I just love how he says that. The rest of the episode, and the arc, is just one wholesome moment after the other, as Leorio and Karapika come to Gon's side, as Illumi asks Gon what he will do. Rescue mission time. After the gang walks away, Hisaka asks Illumi if it is wise to disclose his family's location, and we learn about the weird sort of celebrity status that the Zoldyck family has. Everyone knows about where their hideout is, but that doesn't mean anyone can do anything about it. Illumi looks to Gon walking away and ponders his potential. He wonders if it would be best just to kill him now, before he gets too strong. Hisoka does not like this and threatens Illumi if he was to attempt such a thing. Cute that Hisoka is protecting Gon, but it is for all the wrong reasons seemingly, as Illumi says that he knows Hisoka's type? Little boys? Forget what I said about nothing but wholesome moments, but we get right back to the wholesome sauce when Hanzo and Pokel speak with our boys. Hanzo invites them to visit his country. God, I wish we got more of him besides a shot in the arena arc and a little bit during the election. And Pokel and Karapika exchange apologies for their heated discussion earlier. Satots overhears the gang talking about Gon's dad, and he pulls Gon aside for a moment. Turns out that a large part of Satots' life was inspired by the noble actions of Jing. From the guy in the flashback and now Satots, we begin to understand the monumental impact that Gon's father has had on the world. The most wholesome moment comes just before the end, as the three are stuck in a taxi on some massive highway. Yet another example of Hunter x Hunter's world feeling like our own. Like, come on now, this looks like a highway in LA. Gon is tired of all this waiting around, so the three get out of the taxi and run to the airport, just like at the start of the show. Cute. The arc concludes with Satots, Menshi, and Buhara talking, and we learn that the real Hunter exam isn't over yet. Damn, I got kinda carried away with this, but I really enjoyed it. Overall, I love this arc. I think it's a fantastic start to the series, and it sets up so much that happens later. Off the top of my head, we got Gon and Jing, Kilauea and his crazy family, Karapika and the troop, Hisoka punching Gon and telling Gon to return the favor, Hisoka and Illumi, and hints of Netero's power. I think Hunter x Hunter does suspenseful moments extremely well, such as this one, and this one, and this one. I talked about this throughout the summary, but I truly love how Hunter x Hunter's world feels more like our own in so many ways. Basic weapons, big cities, motorcycles, traffic-packed streets, banks and investment agencies, the internet. It just all serves to get the viewer that much more immersed in the world. While I do not think that Hunter x Hunter has the grandest or most detailed world building, it is incredibly effective at what little it does. During this part of the story, we see Gon at his happiest and most innocent, while we see Kilauea at his most angry and confused. I'll address this in each video to come, but keep note of what happens to these qualities in each of them as the show goes on. Truly fantastic character writing. For me, this arc is A tier. I think it does everything it can do as a first arc, and it is super engaging, especially on the first watch. My main complaints are some lackluster parts in the third and fourth phase, but both of those phases also have excellent character moments, so some is forgiven. I cannot rank the arc yet because I have not discussed any of the others, but stay tuned for the next videos to figure out how the Hunter exam stacks up. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching. This is my first attempt at a video essay, so if you have any advice for me, please leave it in the comments. What I did good, what I did bad, stuff about my speaking, stuff about my editing, you know, anything that you can offer, please let me know. And I plan to do a lot more videos like this. I want to do a series like this for One Piece, and you know how long that is, so I really need to up my game. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you continue to enjoy these videos because they're going to be coming out. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.